Traditional Hawaiian childcare was extremely tolerant. Now, that worked in those days most of the time because the children were loved and accepted, and I mean, they had an extended family, and so that child had the equivalent of lots of fathers, lots of mothers, lots of uncles and aunts, grandparents, all kinds, all over the place. It was a very, very strong and extended family. It was not a tribe. The Hawaiians didn't have tribes. It was not a clan. They didn't really have clans with that kind of structure, but they had these very strong family connections. And so they were very tolerant of children's misdeeds and would never hit them. That the way in the old traditional times was to always redirect. And it worked wonderfully well. Okay? The Hawaiians as a people, when the Westerners got to know them, were not a naturally rebellious bunch. Individual families would disagree on a lot of things, but they would never go to war for that reason. There were never any religious wars. They tolerated all kinds of different religions with different beliefs within their own system. This is before Westerners ever came. There were multiple religions in Hawaii. Okay? Multiple creation stories, multiple kinds of temples and priests and priestesses. They never fought over that. So you have a society that was very tolerant about people's behavior. Okay? And one little story that I ran across, this was a little later after the Westerners had started to come, at a time when the missionaries were already here. And there was a missionary who wrote about in his experience, I think it was on the Big Island, that he was riding on horseback with a friend, and they were riding past this Hawaiian hut that was on a little rise. And he thought it very curious because the whole family was outside with all of their belongings. And they were talking and you know, eating and just mainly conversing, but all their belongings were outside this hut. In the doorway of the hut was a young 7-year-old boy sitting there with his arms crossed and a mean look on his face. Well, this turned out to be a family of nobility. Okay, they were a noble family. And so when the missionary stopped and asked him what was going on, why, the father laughed and he said, "Oh, my son, who is a higher rank than the rest of us, okay, got real mad and kicked us out. So we're living out here for a while." And he was smiling about it, no problem, okay? And the missionary just couldn't understand why he didn't punish the child, why he didn't, you know, take over and move everything back in. The man said, "Hell, that's his privilege." And that was it, okay? There was no anger or resentment or anything. So that gives you some idea. Yeah.